This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, thank everyone for joining us today. I'm Erica Branch, the ED for Parkinson Support Center. As you know, we are all stuck in the house, and we thought it would be a great idea to bring back a program that we had for our caregivers sometime last year. It's the Caregiver Help web series with facilitator Elaine Sanchez. And so, Elaine, thank you for being willing to do this at the very last moment. I know I called you and said we were, just really, really in need based on some of the calls that I'm receiving from our caregivers, just really not knowing where to turn without having our regular scheduled programs. And it seems like everything is closed. And so, I wanted to be able to provide some type of relief, if we could, for folks. So thank you, Elaine. I am going to turn it over to you and just let folks know that during this process, the presentation is going to be recorded. We will have it available and keep it up for a week. Our plan is to next Saturday have just a regular conference call, support group meeting. Elaine is also going to facilitate that. But we want people to have access to this video throughout the week in case there are any questions that come up. I am going to be watching the chat. So if you have questions during this process, please feel free to enter them into the chat. You don't have to wait until the end. As we're going through this, we want it to be, back and forth conversation. So thank you, Elaine, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erica, and I really admire how much you have learned this week and how we have worked together to figure out the logistics and the technical aspects of this. It's like every other part of our lives during the coronavirus. We have to adapt and adjust, and we're doing things different physically, and it certainly is challenging mentally and emotionally. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you maintain your emotional balance when the entire world is upside down? I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but it's a little bit what it feels like to me. So we're going to talk about three things today. And the first, if any of you participated in our previous webinars, you know I talk about developing an attitude of creative indifference. This was inspired by my mother, who cared for my dad for 6.5 years after he had a stroke. In the beginning, she said that she had learned how to develop a detached attitude. And over time, it developed into what she called an attitude of creative indifference. And I asked her, so what's the difference between being detached and being creatively indifferent? And she said, oh, hell, it's all the same. She said, I think that detached sounds a little cold. I like the attitude of creative indifference just a little bit better. What it means is not allowing yourself to become emotionally ravaged by the disease or the progression of events. And as I edited her letters into my book, Letters from Madeline, Chronicles of a Caregiver, I realized that she had 3 steps that she followed every time she came up against a person, situation, a problem that was really giving her trouble. And here are, I'm going to come back to that. That's the first thing we're going to talk about. Then we're going to talk about links to helpful resources. And Erica, I will be providing a sheet to you that you can send out with these links, since people are not going to be able to click on the webinar and go to them. And then we're going to be talking about strategies for self-care. And if you only take away one thing from this, I hope that thing will be the understanding that self-care is not selfish. All right. So talking about the 3 steps of creating an attitude of creative indifference. The first step is to become aware of the specific people, situations, and events that are the most upsetting to you. There are a lot of ways to do this. You can do it by talking. You can do it in a support group, but I think there isn't anything that is more effective than sitting down with a pen and a paper, or sitting down at your laptop or computer, whatever, and writing it. The second step is acceptance, and especially now, we are having to accept a lot of things that are really difficult and things over which we have absolutely no control. And this is probably, to me, the hardest step of caregiving, or dealing with really difficult situations, is understanding that there are so many things that we cannot change, fix, or control. And now the third step is taking action, and that is identifying the things over which you do have some influence and power, and then releasing the things over which you have no power, authority, or control. So today I want to focus on fear. This is what I call the 3 F's of flipping out. We have fear, frustration, and fatigue. And normally, family caregivers fear how bad it's going to get, how long it's going to last, and how much it's going to cost. With the coronavirus, well, we have some new fears that we've never had to deal with before. It's keeping us isolated from our friends and our support network. We feel trapped. We feel trapped in our homes. We feel trapped in our situations. We feel trapped in that there is absolutely nothing we can do to change a lot of the facts that are associated with this virus. Some of us don't know if or when we'll be able to go back to work again. We're afraid of running out of money. We worry about our partner's inactivity and how that can lead to the loss of strength and mobility. And honestly, we do worry about the worst case scenarios. We are afraid that our loved ones will get sick and end up in the hospital. Some of us are afraid that we'll get sick and we won't be able to be there to care for them. And this, to me, is the worst case scenario. We're afraid that our loved one will die and we will not be allowed to be with them. These are pretty heavy duty fears. So I believe that we have some basic choices. We can hide from it and pretend everything is going to work out just fine. We can obsess over it, and let our fears wake us up every morning at 3 a.m., going what I call the monkey mind, going from just swinging from one thing to the next. Or we can decide to face our fears. So if you decide to say no to fear and not let this overwhelm you, then here are some steps that we can take. And I think the first thing is to really name what is causing you to be the most fearful now. And if you have a piece of paper next to you, just jot down a thing or two that is keeping you awake at night. And then I'd like for you to think about what is likely to happen. What do you think probably will happen over the course of the next few weeks or few months? And it might be, yours may be very different from mine, but it might be that we will need to shelter at home for a very long time. This might not end at the end of April or the end of May or even the end of June. We might not be able to visit our care receivers if they don't live with us. Some people are fearful of getting laid off, and money could get very short. We could run out of food and basic necessities. And when it comes to our own mental health, you might think that I could start feeling pretty overwhelmed, restless, bored, anxious, frustrated, and depressed. And how am I going to deal with those things? And then I think it's really important to not dwell on this, but to list what is the worst possible thing that could happen. And when you name it, then that gives you have the opportunity to write it down and to look at it. And then once you do, you can develop an action plan. Now, there's something miraculous that happens when you write things down. It allows your subconscious mind to stop working on the problem. And it also provides clarity. So when you look at the things that are likely to happen, and then you look at the worst case scenario, then you can say, okay, if this is going to happen, what can I do now to get prepared? Who can help me? So can you contact family, friends, professional contacts? Who would be willing to help you with basic errands? And then list the people who would help you in an emergency. I have about 4 friends that are my 3 o'clock in the morning friends, and we have made it very clear that we are there for one another, and I am the person that these friends can call at 3 o'clock in the morning if they need help, and they are the friends that I can call. And then there are organizations that can provide helpful services, and I think it's important to have information and links to those organizations. So some people worry that if you make a plan to deal with the worst case scenario, that will bring it to fruition. That isn't true. I had an attorney that told me that sometimes people are fearful that if they make up a will, they will die. Well, yes, of course, eventually they will, but most of us do not die just because we've made a plan for it. So I think having a worst case scenario plan in place can help relieve your fears and give you a sense of control. And they might make your fears a little less scary. So, Erica, I cannot see the chat line here. Are there any questions, or does anybody have any comments, or would you like to add anything before we go on?
No, there are no questions yet, so I think we're
Okay.
fine to continue on. All right.
Okay. So if anybody has any thoughts, please feel free to share them.
Hey, are you sharing any kind of screen share right now? Because we're seeing an individual on the camera.
Are you seeing my slides on the camera?
No, I did initially, but now I see a lady. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's who I see. Hello.
Okay, so can you?
I can see your slides, Elaine.
Okay.
Okay, well,
So if I see a lady too, so maybe you need to turn off your camera. So that, yes, I see you looking at your camera. You're muted, but I think, are you seeing her instead of my slides then?
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why hers would override yours. So,
Okay, so Erica, can you help me with that? Do you see where there should be, okay, there should be, there you go.
there you go.
Now, do you see my slides again?
Yeah, I do. Safety.
Oh, okay, safety. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Do we need to go back? Where did you start seeing her
Oh,
face instead of my slides?
it's been a while, but that's okay. You were explaining it beautifully.
Oh, Erica, we may need to do this again. That's not going to be what you want for your recording.
Well, I can see your slides, so I think it's fine. I think it might have just been his setting because I can see your slides.
Okay, good. All right. So I think our top priority for everyone has to be safety. And we're all hearing all of the warnings, all of the pleas from our health professionals and from our local authorities. Stay away from other people. Maintain your distance. Stay in your bubble, at least 6 feet away. Of course, wash your hands frequently. One of the services that my husband and I have been using is Instacart, and I don't know whether all of you have that in your area, but it's really a great service. Instacart.com. And if you go to that website, it will show you what stores participate in your area. Where we are, it's Costco and Safeway and Fred Meyer and Petco. And they have shoppers that will go out and buy your groceries for you and deliver them to your home. You pick out what you want on the website and they bring it to you. It really keeps you out of crowded grocery stores and helps avoid a lot of exposure that you don't need to be exposed to. And then another thing that you might consider is having meal kits delivered. This link will take you to a list of the 12 best meal kit delivery services for easy pre-prepped dinners and smoothies. So you can order for 2 people for a couple of times a week. You can order for 4 people for several times a week. And this way you don't have to go out and shop, and you can still have fresh meals that you cook at home. And this link is to a doctor demonstrating how to safely bring groceries home during a coronavirus. I found this very helpful. So we're getting groceries delivered, and we have some single friends who have lost their husbands, and a couple of them live outside of the area where it can be delivered. So we're buying for them. I disinfect everything when it comes into the house, and then we either set it out on our porch for them to pick up, or we take it to their porch. It's one way to stay safe and stay connected with friends who care about you and who you care about. Now, Erica and I were talking about this yesterday, the importance of maintaining a routine and keeping up with exercise. And I'm really impressed with what you're doing, Erica, with your programs and using Zoom. So these are some of the things that I saw that were happening in your newsletter. So Mondays and Wednesdays, you have the dance, Move It or Lose It with Amy Robinson. Chair yoga on Tuesdays from 4:45 to 5:45 with Jennifer McLean. Music therapy at 4 p.m. with Jenny Branson, and I understand you need to have a microphone available. Fight Back with Fitness, Mondays at 6:30, Thursdays at 6 p.m. So those things are a really wonderful resource, and I applaud you, Erica, for getting those online so people can watch them. Also, I would encourage people to contact your local area agency on aging, and they can provide you with resources in addition to the Parkinson's Resource Center there in your area. But they can let you know what is available for people with disabilities, for elderly people. And this is the national website, so you go to that website and then you click on that link, you enter your zip code, and you find out what's available in your community. And they can help you with everything from finding resources, so it might be food deliveries, or it might be Meals on Wheels, or it could be help with Medicare or Medicaid. Just pretty much any question you have, they will be able to provide you with resources that are available in your area. And then if you need help with food, paying your rent, or other essential services, The 211 is a local number that you can connect with in most communities, and they will tell you what is available right where you are. So I think that one can also be helpful. And then I would just really encourage you to limit your intake of news. My husband and I are listening to the radio for about an hour in the morning, and then we're doing about an hour and a half news on television at night. We're listening to the CBS Evening News and then the PBS NewsHour, and then we just have to turn it off, because if you spend your entire day listening and watching, I don't know how you would avoid depression, because there is a lot of bad news out there, and a lot of it is scary. And remember, they have 24 hours to fill, so they're going to lead with things that are disturbing and sensational, and that will keep your attention. And it's important to be informed, but it certainly isn't a good thing to become overwhelmed. I think staying connected with family and friends outside of your household is something that will help you keep your sanity. Um, Calling frequently, FaceTiming, staying connected, having conversations will help avoid isolation and depression. And connecting visually, whether you do, you can do FaceTime live, or you can just do, I'm sorry, that should be, it's not FaceTime live, that should be Facebook Live, but you can do FaceTime live on your phones. And then I want you to understand that, as I said at the beginning, that self-care is not selfish, and you have to take care of yourself if you're going to have the strength to help your care partner and not go crazy yourself. So one of the things that I really recommend is setting aside a little time for yourself to do something every day that brings you some pleasure. And it's important to let everybody know that this is your time and you do not want to be disturbed, that this is something that you need so that you don't explode or melt down. So whatever it is for you, create that time. And we are all confined physically, but the beautiful thing is there are no restrictions on how far our mind can go. So if you turn off the television and look for books or videos or courses that expand your thinking and expand your world, I think you're just going to feel so much happier. And of course, this is important. Monitor your own health. If you don't take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, you're going to run out of the strength you need to be a care partner. Read a book. I've read some great ones lately. You know, Erica, it might be a wonderful idea to ask people to share books that they've read that they think are must-read books, and that would give other people the opportunity to find something that would be stimulating, exciting, engrossing, to keep them occupied.
Okay.
Now that it's spring, holy mackerel, get outside. Even if you just have to stay in your own backyard, get outside and breathe in some of the fresh air. We live in Oregon, so we have had months and months and months of 49 degrees and rainy. And this week the sun came out. It was a celebration. I'm telling you, just being outside can lift your spirits. maybe for you, setting some time aside for yourself means enjoying a cup of coffee, reading the paper. A lot of people get tremendous benefit from meditation. Listening to music is always uplifting. And also prayer. Let's not underrate the value of prayer. And then savor happy memories. It is hard when you are confined with somebody and when they have lost a lot of the skills that they used to have. It's easy to look at that person as that individual is now, and as you expect he or she will be in the future. And it's hard to recall who that person was before this illness struck. So I would encourage you to pick a time that was a good time in your relationship and a happy memory, and focus on that event or that day or that time, and focus how you felt toward that individual and your relationship at that time. And when you're feeling really stressed or angry or frustrated, try to call up that particular memory in your mind to think about, and try to obviously remember that the disease is not their fault, that the disability that it causes is not their choice, and remember that the person that you have loved and cared for is still with you. And then start a project. Actually, my husband and I had a disaster that turned into a bit of a blessing. We were on vacation in January, and our new refrigerator decided to pee all over our hardwood floors for about 8 days. So we ended up having to refinish our entire floor because it starts at the entryway, goes throughout the entire house. So we ended up having to move out of our house and be out for 10 days while the floors were refinished. And when we came back, we were so busy sorting, cleaning, washing, organizing, putting things back that we forgot to be kind of miserable being confined. And this was just at the beginning of the confinement. So look around your house. Think about what needs to be done, what closets need to be cleaned out, what file cabinets are overflowing with stuff. What projects can you do? Can you clean the garage? I went for a walk the other day in our neighborhood, and everybody's at home, but you can't believe all of this stuff that was out on lawns from the garage, and people that were doing building projects or cleaning and sorting projects. So find something to do where you can see a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. And when you finish a project, it's such a feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment. Maybe you could plant a garden. And here's something important. I don't know how many of you might be working from home now, but if you are, and if you have children there, or your care receiver, or anybody that is used to having your attention when you're home and not at work, you're going to have to set some boundaries. And you need to get firm in your mind what is okay and what is not okay. When is it okay for them to come in and interrupt or disturb you? And when are you working and you need to be left alone? You need to be specific and say, this is what I need from you. This is what I need to do, and this is what I need from you, and be very specific. And then be confident that this doesn't work for me, for you to come in and sit with me while I'm trying to do a phone call or write a letter or whatever it is that you're doing. That doesn't work for me. You need to leave me alone. And then be consistent. That's not possible. We cannot go out and go to the grocery store, or we can't have people in. Be consistent. That's not possible. And be firm. No, that is not going to happen. Being specific, being consistent, being firm does not make you mean. It just makes things clear. And when you respect your line in the sand, when you know where it is and you respect it, others will too. And this will help you keep your sanity. Okay, this is important. Say no to guilt. We did a whole session on guilt a year or two again. And I think this is a good time to just do a little mini review of that. A lot of us who are caregivers struggle with guilt. And sometimes it's because of things that we have said and done or haven't said and done. But most of the time, we experience guilt because of the way we feel about a situation or a person. So if you don't like feeling guilty, then I would like for you to consider changing your emotional vocabulary and changing the word guilt and replacing it with the word regret. Okay, so guilt feels like this, like you've done something wrong. You should be ashamed. Regret instead is a sense of sadness or disappointment. It's wishing that things could be different. So I'll just go through some of the things that caregivers tend to feel guilty about, and we're going to talk about changing that from guilt to regret. So I regret that I sometimes have negative and angry feelings. I regret that I can't change, fix, or control this situation. I regret that I resent the amount of time it takes to take care of my care receiver. I regret that I resent the money it costs. I regret that I run out of energy and I can't do all of the things that I want to do for him or her, for myself, or for others. I regret that Parkinson's has changed our relationship. I regret that I really want to get out of the house and get out and be with other people. I regret that I can't keep all of the promises that I made in the past. And I regret that there are days I wish it would just end. I regret a lot of things, but I don't do guilt anymore. So this is this is a hard place to finally get comfortable going, but I think if you can get over the sense of feeling guilty when you have not done anything intentionally to inflict physical or emotional pain on another person, that's probably one of the best self-care strategies I know. And now I want to talk about accepting death as a part of life. We all know that we are mortal, and with this virus, there is more risk to us than we have ever experienced before. So I think that it is important to accept that it is a part of life, that if we get it, there would be a chance that that we would not survive it. If our care partner gets this virus, it might not end the way we wish it would. So this is an incredibly important thing. We all need to get our end-of-life affairs in order, because you simply cannot imagine The burden, the stress, and the conflict that you leave for families if you don't get things organized. There are 3 must-have end-of-life documents, and one is a will or a trust. This document determines who gets your property, your personal property, and your money when you die. Difference between a will and a trust is that when your things are put into a trust, they don't have to go through probate, and in most cases, you can avoid inheritance taxes, and that's a big benefit. You need a durable power of attorney. This is a person who can spend your money the way that you would spend your money. So it's important that you get someone who is really good with money, for one thing, really dependable. You are giving them the keys to your kingdom. So if you are not able to pay your rent or your mortgage or your utility bills, that you know that this person will do that for you. And then we all need an advance directive, and this is where we state our wishes about tube feeding and life support. And without these things in place, if you do not have a will or a trust, then the court will decide who gets your property. If you don't have someone appointed as your durable power of attorney to manage your finances, and if you don't have a healthcare representative appointed in your advance directive, then again, a judge will appoint a conservator for your finances and a guardian for your healthcare. It is expensive, it is cumbersome, it is invasive, and you just don't want to you don't want to have to be that person who does all of the accounting, and you don't want to leave your family with that mess. So, Erica, if you wish, I can send you some descriptions of these end-of-life documents that you could share with people and encourage them to get them filled out. So, I was talking with someone just last week, and her mother was in a nursing home, and she felt like she wasn't getting all of the help or the attention that she needed. And you don't have to be in a nursing home. This can be for a loved one at home. Palliative care, palliative care is different from hospice. Palliative care treats the entire person, not just one specific ailment. So they deal with with medications and with helping with managing pain. They also help with mental, emotional, spiritual guidance, and they treat the entire person. So if you feel like you or your care partner is not getting all of the support that you need, you can ask your regular doctor for a referral to palliative care. This is a service that should be more utilized than it is, and I just have tremendous respect for palliative nurses and doctors. And so check that out. And then if a situation is getting toward the end of life, allow hospice to help. I have been through several situations with family members and with dear friends, and when hospice gets involved, the end of life is just a lot more comfortable than it would be otherwise. I think it's important to say goodbye before we are unable to. And this is a tough topic, but there are so many people now who are going to the hospital when they are very, very sick. They are waiting to get in until it's almost too late. And then families are not allowed to be with them. So talk about this now. Talk talk about what you want them to know before you don't have a chance to say goodbye. I've in my mind, I have started a letter to my children, and that letter starts with, you know, dear kids, if I die now because of COVID-19, I want you to know that I do not consider this a tragedy. And then I'm going to tell them why I have loved them and how much I have loved my husband and my life. And I want to leave them with something very positive to remember me by. I heard a doctor talking the other day. Thank goodness he recovered, but he decided when he was in the hospital that he wanted to try to record a message for his two young children so they could remember him. But he got through one, and by the time he got to the second one, he was just too exhausted and having too much trouble breathing that he couldn't finish the second message. And I just thought, oh, you know, that's something that would be very sad, because I think if we can leave people with a positive message and with um, letting them know how we love them and cared for them and um, leave that, then the possibility of leaving without having the opportunity to say goodbye would be maybe less traumatic. That's a tough one. I'm glad you stayed with me through that one. It's a hard thing to talk about, but I think it's an important thing for all of us to face. And now I want to share with you a story. A few years ago, I was speaking in California, close to Sacramento, and at a break, this little wiry woman, she looked like she was close to 80. She came up to me and she had this little tight beanie knit cap pulled down over her hair, and she had the most sparkling aqua colored eyes. And she said, I want to tell you my story. And I said, okay, I want to hear it. And she said that the week before, they lived out on an acreage outside of Sacramento, and a big storm had come through and it had knocked over their pecan tree, and it was a huge tree, and it fell in their backyard. And she said, I couldn't get to the chicken coop. So I went out to the shop, I got out a chainsaw, and she spent the entire day cutting a path through this huge trunk. Well, her husband had Alzheimer's, and she had been caring for him for about 10 years. And he was sitting on the back steps and watching her all day. And when she finally came in, all covered in wood chips and sawdust and sweat, he looked up at her and he said, "Boy, sure is a lucky thing I wasn't out there in the yard when that tree fell." And she said, "Oh, honey, if you'd been out in the yard, I would have, and if that tree fell on you, I would have gone into the house and I would have poured myself a glass of wine, and then I would have called 911." He said, "Yep, sure was a lucky thing I wasn't out there in the yard." And she called a friend. She has a friend whose husband had Parkinson's, and he had some Parkinson's related dementia that had set in a few years earlier. And these two women talk every day at the end of the day. And when Hannah told her friend about the tree and her husband's comment, and what she said, her friend said, "Well, yeah, I know you. You would have taken your time drinking that glass of wine. You would have gone out and checked on him. If he was still twitching, you would have gone in and poured another one." And of course, they laughed hysterically. And she told me the story, and I laughed. And I know that's not what she would have done. I know that would not have been her response. But having somebody who understands you who understands how difficult this is, someone who will laugh with you, have a little gallows humor, who won't criticize you or shame you or tell you you shouldn't feel one way or another, will really help you get through this. So if you have a caregiver support group that you have been participating in, please find one or more persons that you can connect with on a daily conversation, daily, and try to have one meaningful conversation every day that doesn't revolve around the issues related to your partner's Parkinson's disease. And then finally, I would just ask you to cut yourself a lot of slack. You're not a magician. You're going to have moments when you lose your temper. You're going to have moments when you feel sorry for yourself, when you're feeling down, when you just feel like you just can't make it out of the muck. And in these moments, give yourself the permission to feel the way you feel, to do what you need to do to come out of it, whether that is an apology, whether that's a fast walk around the block, whether it's deep breathing, whatever you need to do to kind of snap out of it and help you recover, do it, and then don't be judgmental or critical of yourself. And then finally, I went for a fast walk around my neighborhood the other day, and I saw this tree, and it reminded me of a dish towel, of all things, that a friend gave me a few years ago. My husband and I had both gone through some surgeries and some, just kind of a difficult series of events. And for Christmas, she gave me this little tea towel, and it had this saying on it that there has never been a spring when the flowers forgot to bloom. And that just filled my heart. And I thought, yes, that's true. We are going through a very difficult time. The entire world, our country, our neighborhoods, our friends, everyone is in this difficult time together. But I have faith that there are scientists and doctors who are working hard to find a vaccine and to find a cure. I have faith in God and the power of nature, and I know that this will not last forever. We will come out on the other side of it, and perhaps this will be an opportunity for us to fix some of the things that were wrong before the coronavirus hit, and maybe we can make this a better world for everyone when it's over. So, with that said, I would like to invite you to visit my website, caregiverhelp.com. I have a lot of articles, a ton of videos. If you are in the need for some emotional support, please go there, and thank you for being here and for being a part of this today. And thank you, Erica, for organizing it.
Wonderful. I appreciate it. Well, thank you for your time. So are there any questions that anyone may have? If so, please feel free to enter them into the chat. The chat button is to the right top of the computer screen. It's just a little chat bubble. And again,
I was going to say, we might want to stop the recording if anybody has anything that they want to say, or if they want to do a chat and don't want to be